Matt, I'm gonna give you the little. Okay, BJ, then it's you. So, in a minute, I'll avoid that.
Yeah.
So back here we have, these were whip planted. There's one clone on the left of the second green stake. Then there's another clone right here. These, I think there was 6 rows of each, 8 rows, I can't remember. They were cuttings planted in between of a different clone. So we want to keep the 2 whip blocks separate. Those are both hybrids. We have a third block of whips right behind this first row within the fence. You can see the leaf, the phenology difference where the whip started, and it sits behind that. And they're all 400 or 500 each, I don't remember. So just to look at planting, crop care, so on and so forth. They did, I mean, survival's good on them. They did well. They were much easier to take care of when the weeds got bad. When they're that tall to start with, it simplifies things. They are much more expensive to grow and propagate. You get one plant from a material instead of chopping it up into 6 or 8 each. So you've got a different cost. They're tougher to transport. So there's pluses and minuses. But it's a good look. I'm glad we incorporated it into the study. Rich, you have anything to add on that? Or any questions arise as you walked over here?
How high was this when you planted it?
Taller than that. That's how high. This one hasn't grown much vertically. And a lot of times whips will not, for whatever reason, I'm not a plant physiologist, I'm an engineer by schooling long ago. But if you look up the row, you can see some that have 3 to 4 feet or 6 feet of growth. You rarely see, this is the same hybrid that's right by the tent as on the side the cars are parked on that runs up along the pine. That's fairly tall. So those are 4 to 12 feet tall. You don't see anything that's growing 12 feet. There might be a couple in the middle that are 6 or 8. For whatever reason, the response on whips, they don't grow as much. In the long run, we're looking at this on our operational basis in the Northwest. We even plant larger stock than that on one of our farms that are 2-year-old stock and like 15 feet out of the ground, and they drill holes with augers. And so, but in the long run, on a longer rotation, 12 years away, there's not a whole lot of difference in size, which doesn't really make very good sense if you're a straight 1 + 1 = 2. It doesn't quite add up, but it makes it, you save, it costs more to plant, you save a lot of money on your first year crop care, even your second year crop care. So, go ahead.
Back there, early on you said 11 tons per acre. Is that wet or dry?
That was the average wet ton harvest. Two years of growth. Yeah, yeah. So our projected growth is on the second successive rotations. You got to throw the first year out. It takes a while to grow roots. Is 20 to 30 dry tons per acre. So we'll know real soon. We're doing a 3-year-old harvest on one of our internals. That's the first full scale. That's a large scale, not a test size, but it's 20 acres or something like that. So we're going to get some real good numbers back this fall. So.
Rick, what clone is this? I don't have a map.
By our number 6320. It's a Deltoides by Max.
6320?
Let me cheat. It's 230 on the map. There's a couple different accession numbers we use. I don't want to use the wrong one. I'll get in trouble.
Okay. I got to take a sample.
Oh, there's a whole bunch of them by the truck too. So anyway.
Do you have cost per acre numbers?
I haven't got them tallied up, but I can do this. This cost per acre for what?
For between the two. I mean, the cuttings versus this. What is the average cost per acre to a landowner to establish one of these plantations? First year. Do you know?
I'd have to think that through. Operational, I can say on my 6,000 acre farm, I do this because the crop care costs. It's cost about 3 times as much for the plant material. It costs $1.50 for me to put one of these in the ground.
Okay.
And it costs 40 cents for a cutting or something like that. By the time you buy the material, more or less, but I can save that in the first year.
Okay.
Operationally, with whips on, we do, and I do it at 240 trees per acre, 300 trees per acre. We strip the buds early, soon as they start flushing and growing, so you have no leaves. And so then if you do any chemical application, you don't have to worry about hitting leaves. Okay. So it makes life way easier. And you get an even age establishment. You get a fairly uniform crop. With the cuttings, you end up with a lot of this because some the deer ate, some they don't anyway. So. So I'm gonna let Matt talk about the fenced area, or BJ, excuse me.
All right, the fenced area, I don't know why they treated this area special, but it's a clonal trial, and so far what you have seen that everything is block trial, and you had several rows of same clone. But if you look at the trial here, each row is a rep, and there are 52 different clones in a rep. And every individual tree in a row is a different clone. That's why you see different leaf form, different growth on those clones. And it's replicated 10 times. And the spacing is 10 foot between rows and 3 foot between trees in a row. And we did the measurement last week. The tallest, the average height of the best clone we have in there is 8.9 foot. And keep in mind, this is where we started with sticks, a foot of 15-inch stick and stick in the ground. A couple of things that I want to bring up while we're talking about test. There are some challenges when you put it in test like this, and there are two different type of sites you have around here. One is the cutover site, old pine sites, and then the ag field like this. And you have less challenges in cutover site because all you have in there is the hardwood, and they grow a little bit slower. But when you go to ag site, you have grass, and then today when you look at the grass, it will be at the ground level. And if you say, okay, I have about 2 weeks to take care of it, and then when you come after 2 weeks, you know how the grass in your lawn is, right? So we go through the same problem here. And then in terms of site prep, over time we have realized that if you have bed, it's easier to treat the weed. That way you know where the tree is. It's going to be on the top of the bed. But when you do like a flat planting like this, when the grass is tall, you have to look for the tree before you spray, and that takes a lot of time. So we have tests throughout Southeast. We have clones. Actually, in 2012, we planted one in Tennessee, one in Alabama, and then there are some other tests. And basically what we are trying to do is we are trying to identify the best clone for the Southeast, whether it's hybrid or pure deltoides. I mean, we have mix of hybrid and deltoides in every clone, a clonal trial, and we are basically trying to identify the best clone for Southeast. And if you look at the tests side by side, I mean, one clone will do good in one side, and if you go 50 miles down south, there will be another clone that's doing better. So you have that differences, and it's a combination of both site and weather, and then a genetic too. So we will actually, I'm looking at my list. There are 5 clones that are 8 foot or over here in the test, and you can go down as low as 1.5 foot. That's the average height. So you can tell there are some clones that aren't doing good here. So
a single tree plot?
It's a single tree plot, yes. So every tree in a row is different clone. So this is the first step in the selection process. So once you identify the best clone, then you can put it in the block plot. That's basically what we did in large 10-acre block plot in Tennessee, up in Tennessee and in North Alabama under IVA's program. So.
Does the soil type affect the growth of the clone?
Yes, yeah. Basically, if you have sandier soil, I mean, you have little less growth, because the other challenge is sandier soil, low soil nutrition. So there's always a challenge between whether you want to fertilize the tree or not. If you plant the trees in the poor soil, I mean, you need to fertilize, and again, you get into weed situation. So you have to fight the weed. So that's a problem. Any more questions?
That, did you, you know, you said that that's ArborGen tiltroides?
Tiltroides, yes.
Okay.
And I think the tallest clone, do you recognize that number? That's hybrid.
Yeah, that's a
The tallest one is hybrid, right here. 8.9 average.
That didn't work very good.
Holy howler.
Oh, I know somebody stuck a peg. So the initial first look on these hybrids look really good, but Randy will clue us a little bit later. But I know operationally, you don't want to look at your first year growth and say that's what I plant. You want to watch things a little ways through. Things change over time. They respond. They get rooted. Things do differently, and we see that on our farm. I've got probably 40 different clones on my farm planted because I live too close to the research guys, so they always want to play around and do stuff. But you notice things. So you want to take a good look at it. And this is a great thing about this project. We'll have 4 years or 5 years depending on funding with the I don't know what the IBA states are, if they're the same as ours or not. So it'll give a good look at a large population, and then some clones we think have. I mean, we didn't just randomly pick the clones out here. Excuse me, I didn't have anything to do with it. Our ArborGen and our research side, we have a pretty extensive research side, didn't just randomly pick 9 different clones. I think they had some process and thoughts on what they put out here. There's probably intentionality and reason for it. So there's some pre-selection done. Weeds were definitely an issue here. You can see what the vines did to some of the smaller ones. We've cut them off, and there is a fair amount of chemical damage. It was pretty labor intensive to get this stuff back into a good condition. We mowed the whole thing, which we wouldn't normally do, but when you start out with lawn grass that deep and you can't find the trees, he literally went out and flagged trees in the row so his mower could make sure he'd stay on line in spots, especially where we were at in the one field back there and in the weaker spots that he wouldn't mow trees over. So.
The other challenge we have is those of you who are familiar with pine, you have a lot of chemicals that you can spray over the top. But when you get to hardwood, that's a challenge for us. There are some chemicals, herbicides labeled for over the top, but if you look at the label, they say when the tree is dormant, and that's not the time we are fighting weed. We are fighting weed in June, July, when the trees are actively growing and you can't go over the top. So basically, you need to put your plant together, and whether the weeds are growing or not, you need to get on top of it all the time. So that's the main challenge for us. There is nothing that we can go over the top on hardwood at this point.
You primarily using a glyphosate base?
Yeah, we've used primarily glyphosate based. We use Alice as a pre-emergent. Low. You can't use high rates with hybrids, with cottonwood or hybrids. So half ounce to 3/4 ounce for pre-emergent. So
you tried Accord XRT too? I'm sure.
I don't know if we have. That's familiar. I'd have to go back and look. So
look, if you have it, I'm not selling for them. I'm just saying we use that in our Kogon grass program, and we've yet to kill a hardwood, and we sprayed a lot of small hardwoods with it. And it's been real effective in killing Kogon grass and not killing the hardwood.
I'll jot that down or I'll hit you up later. So,
Yeah.
So we use on our. I'm familiar with grasses. Vines are new to me. We have different weed pressures, but weeds are weeds. But with grasses, we've used different over the top. And what's the chemical hasn't been the problem. It's when they've had an oil surfactant, you tend to get some leaf problems, and we haven't sorted out which is the problem. It isn't long term, but it kind of holds them back for a while.
Well, that's the good thing about Accord is XRT2 is it doesn't require surfactant.
Okay.
So they call it transport technology built in. I'm not a chemist, so I don't know, but I think that's one of the keys. The reason it hadn't hurt us is because we're not adding MSO or anything to it. So.
And not just questions. I'll take any other advice I can get.
I was just offering.
We sprayed select over like with the base of trees like that for grass, select herbicide with non-ionics.
Accord XRT2.
Are the weeds a unique problem to the south?
No. No, weeds are not unique to the south. The weeds of the south are unique. but I have unique weeds up in my area too. So and the seasonality is different. We get good weed control. If I'm happy in June, I'm going to be pretty happy. I was really happy here at the beginning of June. July, I was not happy. So.
Okay.
So I would say we can head back. I mean, if you want to wander, I don't. Jessica, where are we at for time?
I think we're good. You still have, I think, 15, 20 minutes.
I have 15 or 20 minutes, so walk really slow, I guess. I don't have a whole lot more to say. Ask questions. Glad to answer.
Yeah, we can go and start the...
I'm trying to think. There's not a whole lot more on the growing and operation side. The harvesting side, if you go to AHB website, the Washington University or Washington State University Extension Service has been documenting that. They've got some. I think they've got some really good video clips. They've documented a lot of the activities. The harvesting's fun to watch. I'm a conifer guy by my background, and so I worked in the Northwest Woods for 25 years, and they brought out this corn harvester, and I said, "You're going to harvest trees with that?" Ha 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 ha. Well, it's really efficient. Probably, I'm a harvesting guy. It's probably $3 to $5 a ton through the machine into a truck, green weight rate, and it's we've worked with Case New Holland extensively on that machine. They've had it out numerous times at our farms. It's well engineered and does a really nice job. They don't have 10,000 hours on it, so there's some things, but I've been duly impressed with their design and development. So it's a pretty impressive machine. What's waiting in this phase, Auburn, Zeachem, Kior, is the production side of it. I think I'm pretty confident on a hybrid poplar side we've got enough of a base to go on that you can grow reasonable numbers and provide them, but you can't do it at $15 a bone dry ton. You need $60 or $50 a bone dry tons.
Okay.
What was site prep out